Good evening, and here today is Tropics for September 20th. Just as a note, I'm not a meteorologist, and this video is just a collection of my thoughts and opinions about the storms I'm talking about. For any decision making, please consult the National Hurricane Center, your local officials, or your National Weather Service office. So, if you're wondering where Imelda went, because it's still kind of there, it was deactivated off of the list of active storms. See, it's not here anymore. So there is some southerly flow going into southeast Texas now, so that's fueling some light rain. Obviously, nothing even close to what was happening a few days ago. And that convergence zone that I was talking about yesterday has shifted further north. So but obviously the rain isn't quite as heavy because the moisture flow isn't as robust further up, and so you won't be seeing flooding up there like what has been happening in southeast Texas. So looking at Hurricane Jerry, well, actually, it would be hard. It's hard to believe looking at the satellite loop, but just earlier today, there's a lot of high shear coming into the system, and for a time, the circulation was actually completely exposed. It was pretty much at the edge of the convection, and you could get a glimpse of the low-level center before there's a small burst of convection. And now, relatively recently, there has been a very large convective burst, as you can see here, very deep and cold convection. It appears to be axisymmetrizing or re-axisymmetrizing a bit after the structure is pretty much destroyed. There is some lightning in here. It's not in here. You can't see it in here, at least. But there is some lightning rotating around. So there is some kind of structure under there. There's also microwave passes that I'm going to show you soon. So it's not a central cold cover as I thought it would, or thought it might be when it started. That's basically almost an amorphous blob of very heavy and cold convection, but really not much structure underneath. Sometimes you can see this in sheared environments when the environment is also generally moist. But given that data, it's not one of those. There is structure under there. As you can see, there's pretty good outflow to the south and southwest. You can see the cloud tops basically going pretty readily out this direction, but you can see it's struggling to get much of any convection to the north. There is a bit of kind of bursting away to the north, but it's getting arrested kind of there and not really progressing too far north. There is some, but there isn't much like there is in the south side. So this is a clear sign that there is some bit of northerly shear, a bit northwesterly given the environment, but there is some northerly shear, as you can see, but it's not enough to really expose the convection like yesterday, so it might be a bit weaker than we thought. So if we look at the water vapor imagery here, you can see that upper trough we were talking about yesterday is pretty much gone, and is now replaced by generally like an upper ridge type feature ahead of this trough that it looks to kind of kick this out from moving mostly westward to more to north. But you can see this trough here is kind of amplifying this ridge ahead of it, and so you do have this ridge axis, which is more favorable for systems like these than an upper trough, but you can see that the axis isn't quite on top of Jerry, which would help it a lot more. Instead, it's a bit to the west of Jerry, which means you've got this flow that's more northerly coming into the where the storm is. So that's why you are getting that northerly shear. There's a bit of dry air, as you can see, to the north, but it's not too significant, and obviously it's not getting into the circulation. And also look at this. It's a huge upper trough. We'll get to this when we talk about Invest 99L, but it's pretty obvious right here on the right. So look at the microwave pass. I mean, look at this. It's outstanding. You can see the storm structure very well in here. Anyway, joking aside, this passed a few hours ago, so that was about 3 hours ago from, or 3.5 hours ago from now. You can see that there is a kind of eye feature and a partial eye wall. So it has, given that there was pretty much little structure as it was significantly sheared and there's nearly exposed circulation. This is rather impressive and is another data point that says this is not a convective or central cold cover. Instead, it is giving Jerry some more structure that it didn't, or that it lost due to the shear. So yeah, this is allowing to organize. So if you look at the cone here, so it is still high confidence that we are going to see a trough come in and steer Jerry more north and northeast and get recurved away from the United States. There's been a bit of a trend kind of that shows a slightly less vigorous trough, so instead of just getting kicked right out, it kind of slows down as the steering currents weaken, but then it's still very high confidence that we will see a recurvature, especially since we're not seeing as strong a storm, and the models don't really like that stronger storm going west as much, so and we're not seeing those zero ensembles either that are kind of taking it more southwest. Those are mostly weaker storms, if any. So it's very high confidence, relatively high confidence at least, that we'll see this turn out to the northeast and have little direct impacts, if any, on the east coast. Possibly some swells if it's very strong and large, but even that might be a bit doubtful. As you can see, the Bermuda is still right in the middle of the cone here, so they might be under the gun this time. Of course, you can see how wide the cone is. That's the average track error for this time. So this isn't like saying that there's going to be direct impact. It could be more to the south of Bermuda here. It could be more to the north and end up missing the island. But right now they're in the middle of the cone, so there's a good, or pretty distinct possibility that they will get hit pretty much immediately after Umberto, which it's not immediately, but it's about as close as you can get. This is like less than a week between the storms if this does come to pass. So there's little impacts likely here, but if you have any interest in Bermuda, you should be watching Jerry just in case it does end up impacting Bermuda at all. So if we look at Invest 99L, this just appeared today. It's currently southeast of the Caribbean, so it's in the southwestern Atlantic right now. As you can see, there's really not much convection. There's some firing in this area, there's a bit here, but as you can see, the kind of spin, so that's a relatively vigorous mid-level low right here, that if you do get convection that fires here, you can bring that to the surface and that closes off that circulation. And we're not seeing that now, but there is a relatively good structure, as you can see, with a mid-level low. This convection is likely, or lack of convection is likely, at least partially due to the diurnal minimum, where you have more stable air. We'll have to see what it looks like later this evening, more tomorrow morning once the sun rises, because that's a diurnal maximum when you have the most unstable kind of conditions, and convection is obviously more favored. So if we look towards the water vapor. Yeah, here's that huge upper trough here. It's well, very obvious. So large and in charge. So yeah, it's this big hulking area of generally cyclonic flow aloft, and you can see it's shearing a lot of this convection north of Invest 99L's mid-level low. It seems that Invest 99L itself is relatively well insulated from this. The trough is a bit too far north, and so Invest 99L is currently embedded within some light easterly flow, which is allowing for some lower shear, and this this stronger easterly flow here and this westerly flow here mean you do have favorable upper level conditions like anticyclonic flow aloft and low shear. So this is a good upper level look. It's just thermodynamics might be its problem. If you can't fire much convection, then it's obviously not going to form, no matter how favorable the shear gets. So if we look at the track, it's expected to kind of turn north as it gets caught by the same trough that's taking Jerry out. So you can see it does track near the northeast Caribbean islands. So as it gets here, it does have a chance to strengthen as this favorable kind of look continues. But as it starts getting into the Caribbean, that upper trough right here starts to become more positively tilted. So it looks like once it starts getting in the Caribbean, there would be a trough kind of like this, where you have kind of like this, where you have very strong northeasterly kind of flow and then more westerly flow here. So it's not going to be the westerly flow that Invest 99L will be hit by once it gets into the Caribbean. It's more very strong easterly flow aloft, which will act to shear a lot of that convection away, and so it could develop. Obviously, it could develop before it gets into the Caribbean, which is why it's Invest and why it has chances on the tropical weather outlook. But it's probably not going to be too strong once it hits these islands. But you never know. Like, things can change. So if you have interest here, just keep an eye on Invest 99L for now. And hopefully, it does end up getting sheared and ends up weak. Now, if Jerry and 99L do get too close together, and 99L isn't very weak coming up out of the Caribbean, there's a possibility they do interact a bit. It looks unlikely now, as Jerry should be too far away, and 99L should be too weak at this point. Probably not even a tropical cyclone if it gets relentlessly sheared as it heads out of the Caribbean. Then, if these two things don't happen, then it's possible they could kind of interact a bit, which makes for a few headaches with track, but it's not a super likely scenario, so we shouldn't really be looking too much into this. That's about it for tonight. If you have any feedback, I'd appreciate that, and thanks for watching.